me tell you about a friend. It's Craig LeBlanc where the good times never end. Talking Parks and Rec, it's a show you gotta know. Welcome one and all to the Daily Parks and Rec Show. It's the Daily Parks and Rec Show.
YPN is a community of young and new professionals to the parks and recreation industry who are looking to connect, network, and learn with other professionals their age or that are also new to the field. This is an opportunity for once a month professionals to stop what they're doing in the crazy, hectic world that is their job and just dedicate themselves to learning something new or to connect with a new partner, a new person within the Parks and Rec community across the United States. And so it's a great opportunity for people to really just learn and embrace their time with one another.
Welcome back to the YPN Friday of the Daily Parks and Rec Show, where we spotlight the Young Professionals Network and the next generation of leaders shaping parks and recreation. Today, we're joined by Rachel Smith, a true YPN veteran who's worn just about every leadership hat in the network. From mentoring new professionals to building community across the country, Rachel has been helping young and new professionals find their voice, their confidence, and their career path in this field. In this episode, you'll hear her journey from starting out in Lynchburg, Virginia, navigating the challenges of being new in Parks and Rec, to leading national initiatives that give young professionals a platform to share their stories and build lasting connections. If you've ever wondered what YPN is all about, how it can help you grow, and why this community is so powerful, Rachel's testimony is one you don't want to miss. This is YPN Friday on the Daily Parks and Rec Show. Let's dive in.
All right, so we are live again. We have Rachel Smith with us, a special guest that is, even though she's in YPN, she's quite the veteran of YPN. I think at some point they're going to say, okay, you're no longer a young professional. You're like leading the show here. And she actually has done a lot of leadership roles in the Young Professionals Network, which is why she's going to be such a great guest for today's show, which is every Friday, 12 noon, Young Professionals Network. But as usual, I'm going to keep wearing out my 200th episode until Chris gives us the next version of it, which I'm hoping to get out this weekend, but we'll see. Anyway, we'll play this, and then we're going to talk about partnerships right after that, and then we'll come back with Rachel.
From a simple mic in a rec center to a full-scale media company for the people who power our parks. 200 real stories, 5 original shows, and more to come, with one powerful mission: to lift up the voices of parks and rec professionals across the country. From maintenance crews and young interns and youths who love sports, to directors and public servants making a difference. We've built a platform that honors the unsung heroes behind every clean trail, every weekend tournament, every safe, welcoming park. This milestone isn't just about the content, it's about the people, the passion, the purpose. To every guest, listener, and supporter, thank you. The next chapter starts today. This is DPRS Media Co. Media for public service.
All right, so big thank you to all the team members here at DPRS Media Co. 8 of us working full-time, nonstop to help create a media company for Parks and Recreation. And now we are starting to work with the vendors of Parks and Recreation as strategic partners. And I am getting into some very deep conversations, getting to know them, their founders, their companies, their marketing people that are just have spent decades serving this industry. And I am just blown away by the quality of vendors that work in this industry. And so we are currently looking for 48 strategic partners to help us create 12 shows, all specific to Parks and Recreation. And I had a great conversation with somebody that works in aquatics as an example, and they have been serving this community for 35 years in aquatics. And so one of many that we're talking with, we're going to play a little promo for those. If you are a vendor in this community and you've been serving it for quite a long time, then please reach out to us. We would love to help bring your expertise to the market and help create something valuable for the Parks and Rec community. So we'll play this and then we'll come right back and start our conversation with Rachel.
Are you a vendor, brand, or service provider ready to connect with the heartbeat of local communities? At DPRS Media Co., we tell the stories shaping parks and recreation across America. Through podcasts, live streams, videos, and newsletters, we reach frontline leaders, city directors, and decision makers every single week. From youth sports and facilities to programming and policy, our audience is your audience. Sponsoring or partnering with DPRS Media Co. puts your brand in front of the professionals who build, budget, and buy for their communities. Launching a new product, growing your presence in public spaces, targeting cities, counties, or departments, DPRS is your trusted media partner. Whether you're in software, turf, aquatics, robotics, smart cities, or special events, partnering with DPRS puts your brand in the story. With commercials, interviews, social campaigns, newsletters, and live shows, we're your media team. Partner with us and grow your impact in the $200 billion Parks and Rec industry. DPRS Media Co. Stories that move Parks and Rec forward. Your audience is here. Let's meet them.
All right. So, Rachel, why don't you go ahead and just give a quick definition, maybe even a testimony of how do you explain YPN to someone that's very new to Parks and Rec?
Oh, absolutely. So I've done this spiel a few times over the years, so it's one of my favorites. YPN is a community of young and new professionals to the parks and recreation industry who are looking to connect, network, and learn with other professionals their age or that are also new to the field. And so this is an opportunity for once a month professionals to stop what they're doing in the crazy, hectic world that is their job and just dedicate themselves to learning something new or to connect with a new partner, a new person within the Parks and Rec community across the United States. And so it's a great opportunity for people to really just learn and embrace their time with one another. And so I've had a lot of great testimonies that have come through over the years. Specifically, we've gotten some blogs that were submitted to the YPN open space blog that we did in partnership with NRPA a few years ago. Essentially, some of the testimonies basically said that this gave them a community when they didn't have one. They were in a department of 2 or 3, and the people that were in it were seasoned veterans, and they felt a lot of insecurity and imposter syndrome. But this group, the YPN group through NRPA, gave them so much confidence because they saw other young professionals just learning and growing in the field as well.
Yeah.
So it's a great resource for young professionals.
I never thought of it like that, but many of the Parks and Rec communities have less than 5 people, less than 10 people. And easily, if you're hired to this industry, you may be staring at 20 and 30-year veterans at your city, and there's no one around you. And so this is a way for you to connect with all the young professionals that are new to this industry. Is that the kind of place that you found yourself in when you first came in?
Similar. I wasn't in a tiny unit. I was in a mid-sized department when I first started in Parks and Rec. I started out in Lynchburg, Virginia. And so there were about 7 programmers total that worked in community rec. But most of them had a lot of experience. And I was coming in from what I consider my first career, which was, behavioral therapy. And I was not familiar with Parks and Recreation. I didn't know how local government worked. I was walking in and getting to know the routines and had no idea, while everybody else around me just understood the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Parks and Rec can be super overwhelming because on day one, you're kind of thrown into the fire per usual. You're handed 10 hats, say, here, wear all these. And these 4, we're giving you the whole keys to the kingdom, and they kind of walk away from you. And so it be very intimidating to try to accomplish all things at Parks and Rec when you're new to this industry. So I know that's had to be, I guess, beneficial because at least you have a team to cry with together.
You do, and it's a team to cry with. It's a team to ask questions with, really. I know that in my first couple of years, I asked so many questions, especially about special events and permitting and what do you guys do and do you have a resource and help. And so it was great to be able to ask that. But then I also got this really great thing of friendship And now I
Yeah.
have friends across the United States that I've had for years now that I can reach out to, and we connect all the time as we've grown through our careers. It's almost like we buddied system the program,
Yeah.
and we have kept up with each other all these years to grow and still share resources now as we move through different positions. And that's just
Mhm.
been amazing.
Yeah. Now, what are some of the go through a whole year of working in parks in YPN? You have the 12 1 hour kind of like a Zoom call where y'all bring in a specialist. Describe that event that happens monthly, and then we can go to a few others as well.
So there's about 10 calls a year instead of 12 because we usually do a break around Christmas and we do a break right around conference. So we do an in-person meetup. So there's 10 virtual calls. They typically kick off around January, February, and those are announced at the beginning of the year. We announce all of them for the year on the NRPA YPN page, and people can sign up with a Zoom link through NRPA directly through the Connect site. And when they do that, it's automatically uploaded into their calendars. And essentially, we take ideas that have been given to us the year before or at conference in person, and we connect with our network across the United States to basically bring in qualified speakers. We do roundtables, we've done presentations. And this past year, we introduced something that was pretty new. It was called Rec Club.
Mhm.
There had been a huge demand for people asking to be deeper in their connections. The typical YPN call is pretty standard in the sense that it is a presentation. You get a little time in the beginning to network and a little bit of time at the end to network, but it's really learning based.
Mm.
And so people really were wanting that additional touch point, the
Mhm.
chance to really just talk through and brainstorm and just roundtable discussion with people. And so we came up with Rec Club, and it essentially became the circle where we did all kinds of different test runs of things. We did a book club this year. We did roundtables. We did a resume writing workshop where we tore apart people's resumes and rebuilt them to better themselves. We had the Reckless podcast on to do wicked problem solving with us one day. And
Mm.
so it was a really cool way for us to diversify what we were offering to our young professionals beyond just our typical once a month meetings. So this
Mm.
ended up being almost a twice a month opportunity for them to learn something and then to engage as well.
And that was done virtually as well?
It was, yep. So they were able to sign up very similarly. They could click on all of the meetings they wanted to attend, and a Zoom link was sent right to their email.
Fantastic. And when did that kick off?
That kicked off in March of this year, so 2025, and it just wrapped up because conference is coming up. So our
Mm.
last Rec Club just finished. It was a book club. And so we had a great experience this year with that. So I'm hoping it continues next year.
Yeah. And so who's the I know right now Molly Keys is running that. Did she kind of hand the torch to somebody? When is that? And who's our next leader?
Yeah, so Eric Henschel is our chair-elect for this coming year, and so he will be taking the reins after conference. So she'll do her final wrap-up, and then Eric will take over after conference and start leading us for the next year. And so we'll get to plan what that looks like and go from there.
And then what does conference look like?
Oh, conference is a good time. Conference essentially is an opportunity. If you've never been, it is the most overwhelming, fun conference you will ever go to.
Mhm.
It is an opportunity for a young professional to really see everything the industry has to offer all at one time.
Mm.
And so you're able to see different vendors, you're able to see all different sessions, education sessions from different points of view. It's a lot of generic things of growth and learning, but there's also a lot of very topic specific things like aquatics or maintenance or programming, adaptive services. There's a ton of different resources there. But the best part is when we do our YPN retreat, typically the Monday of conference.
Mhm.
And so we are able to meet up as a group. It ranges between 50 and 100 people that are able to come,
Mhm.
but we're trying to push more and more young professionals towards it every year. But essentially, we push everybody towards it. We get in one big room and we talk about what's going well, what's not, what do you want to see next year, and then we're able to brainstorm just through okay, what's really happening in the industry and how as young professionals do we need to adapt and learn. And
Yeah.
it's just been a really great tradition each year.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be around that early in the convention, but if I am, and if y'all accept any kind of outsiders, I'd love to just sit in the back and just see how it operates and stuff. Uh,
Would love that. All are welcome.
yes. Now, is it on the Monday of the convention this year, or do you know?
I'm pretty sure it is, but that'll all come out on the Young Professionals page as well when we do our meet and greet, and then we also do a social at conference as well. So we typically put that out there on our Facebook page for Young Professionals.
Okay. Well, that's coming up pretty soon. What, we have about 40 days left, I think, till the convention.
Right at, right
I'm
at.
assuming
It's going to be a fun time.
I'm assuming you're attending, huh?
I'm certainly trying. I've got some transitions happening, but this would be one of the first ones I've missed in a while. So I'm hoping.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that journey coming in. Why don't we just start with your story in the beginning? So, what were you like in high school? Did you know about Parks and Recreation? Did you grow up in Parks and Rec? You found this later, or what did that look like?
So I did not know about Parks and Rec for the most part. I grew up in rural Virginia, and so we had a Parks and Rec department, which is amazing for the 1990s. But it was mainly focused on parks and athletics, and
Mm,
so I was not engaged in that growing up. Really, I loved our local parks, but they were 30 minutes from my house, and it just wasn't a huge touch point in my childhood.
mm,
But as I got older, I was engaged more in athletics, and I was tried out a few sports through the local rec department, and so that was fun. In high school, I was a big athletics person. I loved learning, but I loved volleyball, basketball, loved all the sports aspects. But I was really big into art as well.
mm,
Anything that was pottery based or the drawing, painting, sculpture, I loved it all and I absorbed
mm.
that as much as possible. And that just didn't exist in a rural county as much. So I'm very thankful for my local high school art teacher who impressed upon me the love of art. It was
Yeah.
wonderful and a gift that has carried with me to this day. But growing up, the way I got into Parks and Rec essentially is I went to college and got a degree in psychology, and I worked in behavioral health for a few years and ended up in rec therapy. And so that was interesting and close, but not quite Parks and Rec.
Right.
Burned out of rec therapy. I worked directly in nursing homes and in hospitals, and then burned out of that very hard
What
and
is
was
rec
looking.
therapy?
So rec therapy is working with individuals who are either hospitalized or in nursing homes that have specific plans made for by their doctors, and you are following a plan and using recreational tools such as culinary supplies, art supplies, different rec activities to get them mobile and up and increase their brain function, to increase their motor skills. It's very similar to OT. And so it's just trying to get them up and functioning a little
Mhm.
bit more.
Yeah.
But it's very specific. And it was a lot of fun, but it was very medical and very clinical.
Mm,
And so I was looking to transition. I didn't know really what I wanted to do. I knew it, I didn't want it to be medical anymore. And my town, my city that I was living in, Lynchburg, was hiring for a community recreation programmer.
mm.
And I said, I can do that. That's
Yeah.
rec. I can do that. And so I applied, I got the job, I walked in, and I started running a community center and program for that. And it was all of the general programming. It was arts and dance and fitness and all kinds of culinary classes and field trips and senior programming and therapeutic programming. It was kind of a catch-all position. You did all the things. And then I had the incredible joy there to build and revitalize the Jackson Heights Art Studio.
Oh,
And so
nice.
it was the only Parks and Rec department that I'd ever known that had a dedicated art studio. It stood alone, it was its own center, and it was just made for pottery, stained glass, and painting.
Wow. Now I'm curious, what do you think caused the burnout? Was it kind of specific to you? But what were some of the things that kind of wore you down a little?
It was specific to me, but a lot of it was because it was a clinical atmosphere. You had to take a
Mhm.
lot of notes. It was very focused primarily on the results of this is what we're striving for. Clinical just wasn't for me.
Mhm.
And so I appreciate all that can do that and can and work through all of the medical aspects of it. But the clinical side just it wore me down because I really am more of a people person. I want to
Mhm.
sit and take the extra time and get to hear the whole story with an individual and pour into them and change course if we need to try a different art or to try a different culinary technique. And a lot of times in rec therapy, the plan is preset, and so you can't pivot as much. So
Right.
while I think it's an amazing thing, I fully went the rec route with Parks and Rec and got to see how much freedom I had to create joy and to
Yeah.
create programs and to create events and a place to be in community centers, and was able to just thrive in that. It was so much
Mm.
fun.
And so how old were you when you kind of made that switch?
I was 22.
Oh,
So I
wow.
graduated college very early.
Mhm.
And so I was in that clinical side very young. And so
Yeah.
that probably contributed to my burnout as
Yeah, I
well.
bet so. Okay, so 22, you're now in your first Parks and Rec job. What was that like, that year one for you?
Kind of just held on for dear life,
Yep.
and learned as much as I could from the people around me. I connected with the YPN group and started plugging in there. But really, it was learning, it was growing, it was a lot of late nights, a lot of hard work. I That was the year that the Jackson Heights Art Studio was taken from essentially a shell of a building that needed to be repainted and remodeled and have all new equipment put in. And so we weren't a huge city. And so essentially we did majority of that work ourselves. We had great volunteers from local colleges and universities and churches that would come in and scrape paint and tear up the floors and do all kinds of things to make that happen.
Mm,
And so we were able to spend a lot of late nights and a lot of hard work to remodel that building,
right.
bring in the art community there, while also then balancing the other community center that I served and programmed and did special events for the city. It was a lot, but it
Yeah,
was a lot of fun.
yeah. And so you were able to find your YPN early on in your journey?
I was. So I happened across it. It was on Facebook. I was tagged in something with NRPA, and it was a YPN professional just was like, "Hey, come check out our meeting." It was just one of those generic blasts that we put out
Right.
every month of, "Hey, check out the next meeting." And I was like, "Oh, that's a great idea. I need to meet some more young professionals
Mhm.
and hear what they have to say." And so it was great. I'm very thankful I got to meet them very early on in my career. And like I said, we all kind of just joined and linked elbows, and now we keep up with each other. They've been my friends through it all.
Yeah. Molly and Gabby were the first 2 that I met in YPN, which probably were 2 of the best people to meet, on day 1 for me,
Agreed.
coming into what YPN does.
They're amazing.
Um, and so you were able to connect. I guess YPN was not that old back then. I think it's only been around for, you might have been one of the first few years that it started.
I wasn't the first. I was within the first three, though. I do remember that. So it was very new.
Right.
It was still very rough, in the
Mm,
sense of we were learning what the group was and how it was going to evolve. And so it was great to see the leadership team continue that year after year, and it's
mm.
grown tremendously. The biggest year for me is when Katie Mack took over.
Oh, yeah.
Um, yeah, that was a big year in the YPN group.
Mhm.
Essentially, she has a special art of bringing people together, and ever since then the momentum has just been on amazing roll.
Yeah.
And so kudos to her, kudos to Cassie and Molly and Eric for just keeping this train chugging.
Yeah. Yeah. They really have done a great job. Has it made 10 years yet? It's
I
gotta be
think
getting close.
we're either 9 or 10. It's really
Yeah.
close.
Yeah. God, it's hard to believe a decade
Yeah, it
in
is.
YPN.
It
And so
absolutely
then
is.
what are some of so year 1, you're just kind of intro to it, you're coming in. When did you kinda start stepping up in leadership roles in YPN?
Leadership roles in YPN, it was 2020, I believe.
Mhm.
So essentially, that was the first year I did publications, and I partnered with Colton Paddock on that. And essentially, we really worked with young professionals around the United States to get their voice out there. We wanted to make sure that young professionals had a chance to tell their stories. A lot of the times in the NRPA magazine, especially a few years ago, like think back to pre 2020,
Mhm.
YPN was still pretty new. Young professionals didn't have as much of a voice back then. And so
Yeah.
we were still very much the newbies on the scene. Oftentimes we didn't have, we're seen as didn't have as much to say. And so we really wanted to give young professionals a chance to tell their story because their
Mhm.
opinions mattered. And there was a lot of experience coming into Parks and Rec that may not directly correlate with a typical career path for a
Mhm.
Parks and Rec professional, but that applied. Um, and so what we did is we really pushed young professionals to get out of their comfort zone, to put themselves out there,
Mhm.
and to write blogs, to get on the Open Space podcast, to present at conference, and then also to get in the NRPA magazine with articles and pictures. And so it was an incredible thing. We did it for about 3 years, and it's still happening now, but it's been handed over to a new team within the YPN group. But we had, I would say, close to 100 blogs that we pushed out over those years, and a ton of podcasts and articles. But the biggest theme that came out of them was that people found connection in their communities, and now they were so proud to tell it.
Yeah.
The young professionals just were so excited to tell their impact and what their impact was having on their community. And it was just great to see.
And is that some of those early articles that you would get from the young professionals? Is they would just give a testimony to what their first few years have been like in their community, serving their community?
It was. So it was very testimonial the first year or two of, this is what we're doing. The last year, though, we started getting some really good articles that were specifically for how to advance in the field, career growth for young professionals, but also it was tips and tricks on different subject areas. Like, hey, if you're a new professional in aquatics, if you're a new professional in events, we would get some really pointed articles that talked about like breakdown of how to do that, and advice and a career path potentially. So that was really cool to see it change from testimony to, okay, here's my experience and my expertise. I'm going to tell you how to do it now too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to include some of those in our newsletter. We have a whole page for each show. Of course, the young professionals have their own page, but mainly just describes the generic, here's what young professional is about. You can reach out to people. There's a lot of local chapters, and then there's the national YPN. But I'd love to kind of highlight a few articles here and there as just part of that section of our newsletter that goes out every week.
For sure. I can look and see what we have in our archive and get some too.
Fantastic. So talk about, the podcast, or what are the other areas that y'all would, I guess, have your voice on?
So Open Space Podcast is run by NRPA specifically, and they were our direct partner throughout this. And so they essentially did, I think, about 5 or 6 when we first launched it. That was one of the last initiatives we launched before Colton and I handed it off. And essentially it was, Gabby was one of them. We had Katie Mack, I think, was on one of them. And we had some of these core people that were in the young professionals group in the field, getting out there and getting the word out about the group, and then talking about their experience in Parks and Rec as well.
Yeah. Yep. And so you kind of just helped put all that together. This was probably your 3rd or 4th year in YPN?
That was years like one. Yes, YPN as a whole is about my 3rd or 4th year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And then, okay, so now let's talk more about this. Actually, look, I'm gonna go ahead and take the break early because I don't want to interrupt the whole art thing that you're doing, because it's just so special. So what I'll do is I'll play the quick promo for our YPN. This is our 2.0. We got 3.0 launching kind of at the same time. And then I'll play something for our Youth Sports Mastery show every Thursday with host Aaron Locks. He's the owner of the National Academy of Athletics. And of course, youth sports is such a big deal inside of Parks and Recreation. So we dedicate an entire show just to youth sports. So I'll play these 2, and then we'll come right back and finish our conversation with Rachel.
Are you ready to lead the next generation of Parks and Rec? Whether you're a student, intern, or rising leader, welcome to the Young Professionals Network by DPRS Media Co. Our mission? To empower early career professionals in Parks and Recreation through mentorship, visibility, and real-world leadership development. Our vision? A national network of passionate, prepared, and purpose-driven leaders who shape the future of public service. Starting now. Powered by the Daily Parks and Rec Show, YPN gives you access to exclusive interviews, career-building resources, behind-the-scenes content, and live events, all created by and for the next wave of Parks and Rec professionals. Learn from seasoned directors, build your brand, get involved with national conversations that matter. Whether you're in youth sports, facilities, programming, or policy, YPN is your launchpad. Young Professionals Network, your career, your community, your story.
At DPRS Media Co., we don't just create content, we elevate community through storytelling. Now, we're proud to introduce the newest addition to the family, Welcome to Youth Sports Mastery, the podcast where champions are shaped not just on the field, but in life. Hosted by National Academy of Athletics founder Aaron Locks. Youth Sports Mastery dives deep into how youth sports can empower kids, strengthen communities, and build leaders. From coaching culture to recreation strategy, and from player development to parent impact, every episode brings game-ready insight from the people making it happen. Youth Sports Mastery goes live every Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Only on the Daily Parks and Rec Show, sponsored by National Academy of Athletics and powered by DPRS Media Co. This is where purpose meets play.
All right, so let's go all the way back to high school where you discovered your passion for arts. Did that start in high school? As a little kid, did you draw a lot, or where did that come from?
It was mainly high school. I love to draw in color like any kid does as a kid, but I really loved growing into that in high school. And then I sat it down in college and I didn't pick it up again for many years. But I fell in love with it in high school. I was, like I said, pottery, painting, anything I could get my hands on with sculpture or multi-textured pieces. I had the best time. And it really gave me an outlet for creativity that I just didn't know existed before then. And so I sat it down in college and I worked through, I got my degree, I did my clinical field like we've already talked about, and then I came into Parks and Rec in Lynchburg.
Now, before we go to that part, what kind of stuff in high school did you do? Was it just pottery, drawing, acrylics kind of stuff in high school?
Yeah, it was pretty basic. It wasn't anything mind-blowing by any means, but it was just stuff that I had not been exposed to as much. It was a lot of sculpture. It was a lot of pottery. There was an opportunity for some oil painting, things that took a lot longer, but it wasn't anything that was truly mind-blowing of what it could be. But the fact that I was being able to learn and to do this stuff hands-on and get my hands messy and feel the texture of things. I'm a very textile person and love to learn by doing. And so it was an opportunity I hadn't had in a rural small town. It just didn't exist.
Yeah. And, you know, I wish a lot more people would have exposure to that, because it almost is like an entire language that humans have to express themselves through artwork. And a lot of times people just cut off from it forever. So, and you can see how it just stuck with you as per your testimony. And now you get to do what you do. Anything to say about how art just allows you to express yourself as a human?
It does. So as you just mentioned, it's almost like a language.
Mhm.
Art gives you the opportunity to say what you want to say that you might be afraid to say, or that you're unsure of what truly words you would use to form the sentence.
Mhm.
It gives you a chance to put your emotions on a piece of paper or to create something that is literal dirt into something beautiful. And so it gives you an opportunity to put your heart and soul into a piece when you may not know how to express yourself otherwise.
Yeah. And then there's so many forms of art. Maybe we can roll through those, because you've got, I guess, performing arts, which is more like music and dancing and stuff. And then you've got, is it the visual arts?
Visual arts. Yes.
And then what does the visual arts encompass?
Oh, so many things, and I'm not going to do it justice trying to lift them all off of memory. But you've got your painting, you've got acrylics, you've got oils, you've got watercolors, you have the acrylic pouring, and then you have pottery, which is, you know, the bone china. It can be thrown pottery, hand built pottery. It can be air dry clay that a lot of schools use. You have your different photography elements, which is anything from like the prints that you would develop yourself to the different styles of exposure photography. From there, you have drawing, you have the different shades, you have charcoal, you have pastels, you have a whole number of visual arts. You have sculpture, you have the different textiles that also technically fit into that. That's anything like quilting or needlepoint or any of your crochet knitting. It gets a little blurry if you want to technically define it by fine art versus craft, but I like to consider it all art education.
Yeah. Man, if that's a terrible explanation, you I don't know what you'd call mine. That was fantastic. The only one that I was like, when I went to France, I got to see all the tapestries, which was a big art back in the day, and it's kind of lost. But same thing. It's like you're just almost speaking in through your artwork, and then a lot of my children were in they were musicians, I guess, pianists, violinists, cellists, that kind of stuff, and it really did impact the rest of their schooling. I noticed, at least, that I don't know what part of the brain art works, but it's helping out their math and science and everything else.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned that. So I've done a couple presentations on art education and art access and why it's so important in the Parks and Recreation field. And some of the data that goes behind that, I pulled for today's conversation.
Oh, I love it. Let's hear it.
And so they've done some psychological research on this, and they've done studies in schools, especially specifically K through 12. And so they saw when a child had at least 30 minutes of art education in their daily routine, they saw a 44% increase in empathy, a
Wow.
22% increase in their literacy rates, and a 72% increase in their critical thinking skills.
Wow. Well, we stumbled upon that as we homeschooled our kids, and we were just like, let's just put them in arts, having no idea we were going to get all that, which you just laid out.
Well, the fact that it's activating a different part of the brain than your typical learning experience does, it really does engage the entire mindset. It keeps them focused. It gives them something to give a creative outlet with, and they're able to relate better and speak better to different people around them. And so it does increase that empathy and those critical thinking skills that are so important.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now back to where we were. So now you're in your Parks and Rec department. You've inherited. What did you inherit, and how did you? I want the whole story.
Okay, I'll give you the whole story. So essentially, I inherited I like to call it a pottery club. They were a group of potters who were retired that had been doing pottery together for 10 years at least.
Wow.
They met every day. They had been in one of the larger community centers in the city of Lynchburg, but the center was going through renovations. And they were like, where are we going to put these people? Like they love this program. We can't cut this program. What are we going to do with it? And so there had actually been a community center that was very small, and it used to be a very, very small schoolhouse that had been sitting vacant since the 1980s. And so the city owned it. They had done nothing with it for quite a few years, and it was a resource that was just sitting there in the Parks Department. And so we got moved over to this little tiny schoolhouse that needed a deep clean and a really good coat of paint, new cabinets, new floors. But we were incredibly grateful because the pottery group embraced it. They were excited to be there. We had really great community members come alongside us to help us with the actual work. We were a small department, and so we didn't have a lot of extras through the city to overhaul a whole building. It wasn't in the CIP. There was not a lot of extra funding coming in for this. This was just a hope and a dream and some programmers in there trying to make an art studio. And the potters helped, but we had potters and stained glass that were our first core group in the art studio.
Yeah.
And we had very dedicated instructors too that had taught for 10 plus years. The stained glass instructor had taught for almost 30.
Wow.
It was incredible. And so during my time there, we were able to get the funding. We were able to procure new equipment, brand new kilns, new wheels, new slab roller, new grinders for our stained glass program. We were able to grow from 2 classes a week to 9. We were able to hold sessions every single day, Monday through Saturday, morning and night. And then we had children's classes that we were able to accomplish, as well as camps, art camps, which was just an absolute pleasure. And then from there, it has only grown. Even since I've left the program a few years ago, that program has just exploded. The art studio is a core of the city of Lynchburg, and the residents come out in droves to participate in that community. We were blessed with a lot of great instructors through the years. They would come just wanting to give their knowledge or to give back to the community, and they would volunteer their time or be paid through the city as an instructor to teach the fundamentals of the program. It was a great experience.
And so what year was that? did you launch
That
that?
was 2017 it started, and there were different stages of the revitalization of that building all the way until 2019. And it really took a lot of loops and curves. I think my favorite though that it went through is we did exterior murals on the outside of the building that were designed by the local camps in the
Mhm.
rec department. So they were asked, what does Parks and Rec mean to you? And we did block murals that they then got to paint all
Wow.
over the outside of this art studio. So it's incredibly colorful. It has its name branded across it in a beautiful painted style. It's got the logo on there for Parks and Rec. And then in the back there was a painted by a volunteer. Her name was Tammy. Shout out to Tammy.
Huh?
Of a pottery garden. So she painted this beautiful garden on the back of the building, and then she had pottery pieces just popping up everywhere. But it was the most cohesive uh, mural designed by children that I've ever seen. It was
Oh
great.
my goodness, that's beautiful. You know, it reminds me of a conversation I had on with one of my guests. I apologize for not remembering because we've had so many, but they had a graffiti wall, and they would paint this wall with graffiti, and it would only last a year, and then they would paint over it again, and then they would redo it each year, and it's become like a highlight of their community as just a way that the local artists can kind of express themselves.
Absolutely. It's a
Yeah.
great way to do it. I'm so glad to hear that's happening. I've seen those in a bunch of different locations. They're
Mhm.
super popular, and it's really cool to see how much can be done with spray paint or chalk and how many different ways that can be used in those mediums to really bring something to life or just to tag something. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
I'll see some of these chalk artists, they'll come and paint something and you just don't even wanna walk over it because it just looks beautiful, and even though it's only temporary, it's still gorgeous.
I don't know how they get the 3D elements like that. I
Oh,
love art. I
no.
still participate. I have no idea how they do that. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
What art do you still do?
So I'm a potter, and that's
Mhm.
my go-to art form. I love wheel-thrown pottery. It's something that I still practice to this day. I used to teach in the arts program, and I've taught over the years in my Parks and Rec career. It's always been a little something to myself that I would do no matter what position I had. I always like to go back and teach.
Yeah.
And so now I'm working on my own studio at my house, and essentially I am just throwing myself into becoming a potter on the side and just
Oh,
enjoying it.
fantastic, fantastic. I went to probably the best farmer's market I've ever been to, run by the city of, Pensacola, Florida. If you haven't been, shout out to the director and assistant director there. They've been guests on the show. But they have a potter, husband and wife there, and they make the most gorgeous things, and I'm shocked, and they practically just give them away. It's like $10 or $20
Oh
for
wow.
a coffee mug or something, and they just love what they do, and they're like the cutest little old couple. But if you had to kinda explain the world of pottery to someone who's never seen it or done it before, let's kinda give a little testimony to that.
Ooh, the world of pottery. You know, in all the years of me talking about this, no one has ever asked me that question. I like it.
Well, now's your chance. Let's do it.
Okay. The world of pottery. Essentially, the world of pottery is a lot of camaraderie.
Mhm,
The potter community love to get together and they love to collaborate and talk. But essentially, it is taking a literal piece of mud
mhm,
and getting to practice your skills over and over again and learning patience and learning community and learning skills that you would otherwise never use and dexterity of your fingers to
mm,
create something absolutely beautiful.
wow,
And it is something that becomes so fragile. You add too much water to clay and it literally disintegrates in your hands.
mm,
But as you build it up, as you learn the fine balance between water and clay and pressure, you're able to create this beautiful piece that is then put through the hardest, hottest kilns, and it comes out on the other side that you're able to decorate and then fire one more time through even a hotter temperature, and
mhm,
then you get this beautiful piece that you get to look at every single day.
wow,
And it speaks to me so much is because pottery to me is a similarity to life.
mhm,
It is something that we as people continually are put through trials. We go through things, we go through stages where we're built up, and we go through stages where we're absolutely torn down. And we are put through trials like a hot kiln. But we always pop out the other side better for it. We learn from it and we're stronger because of it. And so that's why pottery means so much to me. It's a fun craft, but it because it means a lot to life as well.
Wow, that's such a beautiful explanation, Rachel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Um, and so how hot are these kilns? And then explain, because isn't there like a glazing process? And then what is that like?
There are. So the kilns get anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 degrees, depending
What?
on what kind of kiln that you're running.
That's
Um,
crazy.
it's very, very hot. Don't touch it. And so you'll go through that, and it takes 24 hours typically for a kiln to go from where it ramps up temperature, if you have any holds, to all the way through the cycle, and then cool down enough for you to be able to touch the pieces again. It takes about 24 hours. So then you'll pull your pieces out that are, it's called bisque fired. It's gone through the first fire, and then you glaze them. And so that can be a number of different ways. A lot of people do dip glazes. Some people do brush glazes, and then you decorate them. You can, it's called sgraffito. It's where you draw in very thin lines,
Mhm.
or carve out in thin lines, and then you're able to decorate with pictures or painting on them. And then when you're happy and satisfied, which is the hardest part, because some people, and myself included, don't know when to quit,
Right.
you put them back into the kiln and you fire them to a very, very hot temperature, depending on what clay or glaze you have. And then it pops out this beautiful piece that you get to take home.
Wow. And so what's the analogy to life as far as how you start out, then you go through the first hot
Hot
kind of,
trial.
and then you
Yeah.
go
And
through
then
the
you
evening.
come out and then get to decorate and get a little better. Then you go back through another trial and then you pop out the other side. You're a lot stronger because of it.
Wow. Now, what is bone china? Is that part of this?
It is. It's a very fragile technique of pottery or clay. It's a very specific kind of clay that is very, very thin. It's very, very delicate, and it's very hard to work with. So I personally can't work with it. I've never been able to master that, but to those who can, I'm so
Mm.
impressed.
And so how many years of mastery does it take? I guess it's like anything else. You just have to spend hours and hours and hours. What would you
Hmm.
say? Because I remember when my son started playing cello for the first couple years, it was horrible. But at some point it just clicked and it went from this is annoying to don't ever stop playing. It's gorgeous. As a potter yourself, what were the kind of the phases you went through?
I'd say there's still phases. It's not
Mhm.
something you ever fully, you're like, yeah, I can do this in my sleep.
Mhm.
At least for me. For the first few years that I did it, it was a learning curve. I had experience of it with high school and I loved it then. It was very rough and it was very elementary, but it was a lot of fun to do. But then as I got into this Jackson Heights Art Studio where I was building this program, I realized I needed to learn it better. And
Mm.
so I sat down and I was very clunky and very awkward and trying to build things and grow things and not use too much water. It was very awkward and it was
Mm.
not successful for a while. But we had great teachers, including a girl named Trish and Sarah and Gail. They all were dedicated and were like, yes, you're going to learn this. You're going to figure it out. And so we went through probably about 6 months of me just trying to not kill this piece of clay, that we could get it through the kiln and everything would be fine. And it did. And we got through it. And then over the next probably 4 years, I was able to consistently practice and continue to hone my skills, while I was at that studio. And so that was an incredible opportunity. And it was a lot of ups and downs. There would be trials because you can master one pattern, one form. And then if you try a different one, if you go from a mug to a vase, you're going to have to essentially start over and take the basics and learn how to do that form. And it's not going to be the same. So you have to
Mm.
keep learning with every new thing you try.
Mm. And so what are some of the skills that you kind of struggled with? Say day one on pottery, I know you gotta center it on the wheel, which just seems impossible when you first start, but what are some of the other phases that you go through as you start adding your skill stack?
So centering on the wheel is definitely, in my opinion, the hardest. And that's actually something we would do for our participants when they were first starting so that they
Yeah,
wouldn't get discouraged because it's so hard.
right.
But from there, you learn how to bore into the clay to create an opening. You stretch it out. You compress the bottom really well so you don't get cracks. And then the next hardest piece is trying to pull up the walls. And
Mm.
that's where you have to take your fingers and essentially pull a consistent amount of clay all the way up as high as you want it without going too thin to where you break through the piece and without going too thick that you have to essentially shave a lot off in the process later on. And so that's something that people really struggle with, probably second, right behind the centering.
All right, so you've got your centering, you've got your forming, and then what do you have to attach little handles or make lids? What's
Yeah.
next?
You attach handles. It depends on what you're making. If you need a top, you got to make a top. If you're making a teapot, you have to attach a spout and a top and a handle and a side handle. Get real fancy with those. And then for mugs, you just do a nice handle or you create what you want. I've seen some really funky mugs over the years. People get really creative. I've had people literally cut a mug almost in half and create like a half mug. However you feel is your mug, you make it to
Right.
your heart's desire.
That's it. And then now let's go into glazing. How is that different, and what does that look like?
It differs. Like I said, there's a dip glaze where you submerge the whole piece into a bucket of glaze. There's brush glaze where you can take a little pint bottle of glaze itself and then literally stroke it on like you're painting the piece. And then there's different squirt bottle methods where you could take a very fine tip and draw small lines all over it.
Mm. And this is all part of what you do over there. So let's talk about some of the other art performing. Do y'all do performing arts over there as well, or just visual arts? Or
So we did when I was in Lynchburg. I had the opportunity to put together performing arts. We had a beautiful theater, and then we also had a dance program that I'm incredibly proud of. And I love to see dance also expanding into parks and recreations as well. So we did an academic year-long program with a local nonprofit called Kumba Dance that took kids ages 5 to 18 and they gave them a formal dance education in tap, ballet, modern, jazz, and Afro-Caribbean dance.
wow.
And
Yeah,
that
dance is hard.
it's hard. That stemmed from a little girl in one of the local community centers saying that she really wanted to take dance, but that her parents couldn't afford to put her in one of the really expensive studios in the area.
Mhm.
And so I was like, well, we have some connections and we have a dance studio. I bet we could make something happen. And so the community really rallied around that. We've had over 350 kids go through that program by the time I left in 2021 in the city of Lynchburg. And some of them have traveled all over the East Coast performing and now are getting jobs as young teenagers and adults in performing arts.
Hmm. Now, do y'all do any like plays or anything like that?
We did do plays. We did some theater camps. We did plays, but mainly we partnered with local actors and actresses and local companies who wanted to utilize the professional theater space. And they brought professional theater experience into that space.
Yeah, and that's one great thing about Parks and Rec is they have the facilities, they've got the maintenance people, and maybe they have like yourself, somebody's passionate about pottery and have that, but then you've got all the other hours where the studio is kind of empty, and you can invite other third parties to come in and say, well, just do what you do over here. We've got the building.
Parks and Rec doesn't really exist without partners. We thrive off of partnerships, and same for tourism. Everyone thrives off of partnerships because one man cannot do it alone.
Right.
And so there are experts in every community, whether it's arts experts, sports experts, trails experts, theater experts that truly dedicate their time and are willing to volunteer and make something wonderful for the community. We had probably 5 different nonprofits communities that worked in that theater company, and they all used the space in some way, shape, or form. And then they volunteered their time with the department to teach classes in order to rent the space. So we gave them a swap. And it was great for our department. We were able to have great programming for theater for children and education. And then they were able to utilize the space in the evenings when we were closed for their performances.
All right. So now in hindsight, let's say you have somebody like yourself that has a similar building that's fallen apart. They want to follow in your footsteps. Can you point out some landmines for them that you maybe in hindsight would have done a little differently?
Contact your public works to do a full walkthrough of your plumbing, your HVAC, because that was one of the biggest struggles for me is clay, especially, or glass sediment settles in pipes. And so if you don't have the right clay traps or the right air filtration systems in, you will have to backpedal very, very hard and come up with all kinds of alternatives, which I did. Please don't do that. Please get that walkthrough done or reach out to professionals before you fully go into the project. But that was the biggest thing on the infrastructure side. The other is make sure you're using the resources in your community. Don't try and take it on by yourself. It's not possible.
Yeah.
It took hundreds of hands to make that building happen, and it still takes hundreds of hands every year to maintain it, to keep it beautiful, and to keep it active and engaged.
Yeah. And then also, as a former master electrician, please call your electrician, because I hooked up 3 of those kilns and I was blown away by the amount of electricity they consumed. It was like 100 amps of 3-phase. And
It's
I'm
a
like,
lot.
"Oh, that's just not like a toaster. That thing is massive."
Very much so. I'm glad you said that, because especially if you're running more than one, you
Oh,
want to
yeah.
make sure you've got enough amps to handle that.
Right. You'll have to turn the whole building off to just run that one if you're not careful.
So
Yeah,
it's an
'cause
interesting time.
yeah, we did that for Episcopal High School. They had 4, and I was like, your service isn't big enough to run that if you wanna run them at the same time." So we had to make their service twice as big to handle, their pottery studio, I guess you would call it.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Well, see, it takes a lot of hands to make it happen, doesn't it, Greg?
It does, it does. Okay, so, one thing I like to do, with every guest on the show is imagine you've got and this will be very relevant for you because 'cause you're not that far away from it, but imagine you've got a college class or a high school class of undecided kids. They don't know what they're gonna do with their life, and you stand in front of them giving a testimony to this industry of why they should dedicate their life to parks and recreation. What would that testimony be?
The testimony would be that you don't know what you're going to walk into the next day, but you always get to have fun. You get to bring joy to others, and you get to experience something new every single day. There
Mm,
aren't a lot of jobs where you get to have the fun, the flexibility, and the freedom to be able to do all of that and have something new every single day.
wow. And so imagine that ties into your why. Does your why differ from that, or what is your why?
My why really doesn't. So I love the fact that I get to create joy for people.
Mm,
And so no matter what I do, I've stepped into a lot of different roles. We talked a lot about my time in Lynchburg on this episode, but I've stepped into a lot of different roles in my career in Parks and Recreation over the past 10 years. And it has been a joy to be able to create experiences and fun for other people. And that
mm,
changes with every position you're going to step into. Your exact role changes, but your end goal is to still create positive experiences and opportunity for everyone in your community. And
mm.
that's my
Yeah, wow, that's a powerful why. That'll keep you going for 40 years in an industry. Uh,
I hope so.
yeah, because so many people, they wait till the end of their life when their best years are spent, they're retired, they got a little extra money, now they wanna give back, but they're old, and but in Parks and Rec, you can be 18 years old, they're gonna throw you right in the middle of it.
Yes, they will. And they will say, "You got this. Just
Yeah,
figure it out."
right. Just don't burn the building down if you can help it.
That's the goal.
That's
Lock
the
it up when you're done.
that's it. Turn the lights off.
All right.
Um, how about special events? Were you ever tied into those? Did you enjoy that?
Oh, definitely. Special events has been a theme across my entire career. So I did them in Lynchburg. I did them when I worked in James City County, Virginia. I've done them here in Charlottesville. And so special events have basically been a core pillar of what I do in my career in rec. And so essentially, I created fundamental events in Lynchburg. So we did a celebration of lights event, which was a big park that was decorated in holiday lights. That was a drive-through event. That was one of my babies. We did art in the park, all kinds of fun things like that. And then James City County was a really event-filled place. If you've never been to Williamsburg, James City County, they've got something going on every single weekend.
Wow.
And so I would do between 25 and 35 special events a year, depending on the weather. And it was festivals, it was biking events, it was all kinds of art events. But it was a lot of fun there. And that was something almost every weekend for special events. We had an entire special event coordinator position that was dedicated to that.
Yeah, special events it is special, and, it does take in a lot of your weekends though, but it's
Yes.
you're throwing the party for the community.
You create the fun, and then you got to find your own fun after that because
Right,
we'll wear you out.
right. Alright, so I have a question from you from Audrey Cooper
Okay.
from Chelan, Washington. She was a guest on the show last week. She says, "What is one of the weirdest things you have encountered in Parks and Recreation?"
Oh, I've encountered a lot of weird things. I have a wall of you can't make this stuff up. But I
Yes.
think my favorite story is a few years ago, probably 3 years ago. We had a campsite that was a summer campsite at a school that was inhabited by raccoons. So a mama had had baby raccoons right at the school. And so the children could not go into the school to go to camp until we quite literally got rid of the baby raccoons and the very hissy mama. And that was one of my favorite stories because it directly correlates with the Parks and Rec show of the raccoon infestation of Pawnee. And so it's my go-to example of you can't make this stuff up.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so what question would you like to leave for our next guest?
Ooh, okay. What's the biggest thing you see coming in Parks and Recreation in 2026?
Oh, gosh. All right. Well, while we have you here, what is your answer to that question? Because that's a gosh, how do you predict that? There's so much change happening fast.
It's
it
always
seems.
happening fast. I have two predictions. One is we all know that AI is coming and fast, and so I would love and predict that that will be incorporated into our world a lot more by then. It won't be as new, and we'll have a lot more systematic processes that we can incorporate AI into. Even a rec software, maybe. Who knows?
That's right.
The other is the amount of new emerging sports that are happening. It's been really interesting to see the new ones that are coming out. We just did a master plan here in Charlottesville, and futsal has become just so popular. And so we are looking at building a futsal course here. And
Never
so
heard of that. What is that? Futsal?
it's like football and soccer, and it's a mix of 3 different sports, and it's very big in Eastern Asian cultures.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Wow.
Interesting to watch. I can't explain it. I'm not an expert in any way, shape, or form, but it's impressive. So all of the different sports that are emerging is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And AI is already a daily part of my life. I probably sit with my AI agent 2 to 3 hours a day. I mean,
Wow.
he's helping me co-create everything. It's going to make how we use our cell phones for everything seem like our flip phone back in the day. Like
Absolutely.
you use your flip phone to make calls and play Snake, and that was about it. And now I can't imagine somebody took your smartphone from you and say, go back to doing everything before the smartphone we have. I think AI is going to be a bigger leap forward than that.
I would agree with that. And I think with all of the education that's come out over the past couple of years, as well as the immersion into it, the amount of education sessions that people are going to and trying things out, I think it's going to very quickly become a core pillar of what we do and
Absolutely.
utilizing our resources correctly and
Yeah, it's
well.
really nice to have, 20 PhD levels in every topic you can imagine just sitting right there talking to you as you do your job.
Absolutely. It helps me every single day just get better and faster at what I do. And I can't imagine not having that in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be great. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Love your journey in YPN. And do you have so you're in transition now. Where are you moving to? Are you allowed to even say?
I can. So today's actually my last day in the city of Charlottesville as the deputy director here, which is very bittersweet. But I am actually transitioning to the county of Hanover, Virginia, to be their director of tourism. And so I'll be partnering very heavily with their Parks and Rec department to bring awareness and cohesion to all of the fun experiences that are in the county of Hanover and the Richmond regional area.
Oh, well, we'll have to check back in with you. Maybe we'll give you about 6 months to, your hair will be on fire and we'll be able to say, how's it going?
Please do. I'm building a department from the ground up. So maybe 6 to 9 months just to see what we're doing, what we're moving and shaking with. But yeah, I would love to chat again.
Well, I would say Parks and Rec has prepared you for that.
Well, thank you. And it's an honor to be able to continue to educate and bring awareness to everything that Parks and Recreation is doing in the industry. And I'm excited to bring that to Hanover as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. And I hope to see you in Florida here in a few days shortly.
Absolutely.
And have a great transition. Great job on your last day. And I can't wait to hear about your journey in your new location.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thanks for all that you're doing for the Parks and Rec field. We really appreciate it. And it's great to see such involvement. Appreciate you so much.
Thanks a lot, Rachel.
Thanks. Have a good one.
You too. Bye. All right. So another great YPN professional show. She's just, you get to see, and I'm so glad we went deep on like her journey in pottery as something that she can bring from her life as a high schooler, as a child, and then how she's incorporated that into sharing and growing her community, sharing that artwork, and then how that just expanded into all the other performing arts and everything else that she does. And so that's what you get to do in Parks and Rec. And I love her community. I mean, her testimony as far as you get to bring joy into people's lives as a profession. This is what you do professionally. This isn't like a part-time gig where you volunteer on the weekends. No, it's like full-time job. You get to bring joy to people's life. And she's getting to do it in the best years of her life, from starting at 20s, so that when she looks back, when she's like in her 60s, she can say, wow, what a rich, fulfilling life that I got to dedicate so much of my time and energy to bringing joy as a public service to your city. So great testimony there, Rachel. There's countless stories like that happening every day in every community in Parks and Recreation. So definitely, if you have not considered Parks and Recreation as a career path and you're a young adult, maybe a high schooler, and all you've seen in Parks and Rec is maybe a local park, or maybe you've done some after school care, or maybe you've had some summer programs and you've never even thought about this as a career, go find somebody like Rachel that's working in your parks department, and maybe even just shadow them or volunteer or coach or get a part-time job there, and try to expose yourself to this industry and consider, hey, I might want to do this the rest of my life. Because I can tell you, the professionals of Parks and Rec that have come on our shows, you can just see in their life, in their testimony, that this is really a big chunk of how they find joy, is bringing joy into other people's life. It's a very rich life. So thank you so much again for that testimony, Rachel. Hope to see you at the convention in Florida, along with many other young professionals. And by the way, if you are a young professional and you're not in the Young Professionals Network, I think they only have like 50 or 100. I'd probably be stretching it to say if they ever had reached 200 members. I know there's way more than 200 young professionals across America. So get involved. You're not alone. There's a whole network of people that are approaching their 9th or 10th year of doing something for the young professionals. So get involved. You can just start by attending their monthly meetings. It's open to everybody, young. And it's not just young professionals, it's new professionals. So even if you're not, let's say you're your mid-20s or even 30s, but this is your first time, it's like year one for you in Parks and Rec because you came from another industry. I think Young Professionals Network is open to that as well. Also high schoolers, there's a lot of people doing interns. And then this show is also for the teachers. So if you are a teacher, a professor, a mentor in the young professionals arena, we'd love to have you on the show. And of course, that coveted slot of if you run a great internship program where you have interns that are coming spend a semester in your Parks and Rec department, please reach out to me. And we'd love to have you on the show just to talk about how that works, the dynamics of it, and what it's meant for your community to have, an internship program where you're bringing in the young professionals, exposing them to the industry. That's another great group of people that we want to have on the show. And we have a few of them. Shout out to Thomas over at Henry County, Georgia. They run an amazing internship program, not just in they do something called the watering can, where they get a lot of high schoolers to come in and work with the maintenance department, and they teach them a lot. And I would say probably about half of all the employees at Henry County, Georgia, came through some version of working with the youth, and they end up coming back as adults and working full time for Henry County, Georgia. And so if you are running anything like that, even if it's like within your first year or so, please come on the program. Tell us all about it. Maybe even bring one of your young professionals or interns with you on the show. Shout out to Molly Keys. That's exactly what she did. It was just her and her intern. It was a great show for YPN. And I think we just want to make more content like that. We've got an hour every Friday, 52 shows a year to talk on this topic and try to, like Rachel said, give a voice to the population so that their voices can be heard. And with so much new stuff happening, Parks and Rec is really having to pivot fast. And I think no one pivots faster than someone that's just new, because it seems like their whole life is a pivot in those first few years. All right, so we'll go ahead and close it out. We are definitely hosting some type of meetup. We're going to do a coffee, and then we're going to do an evening event from 4 to 6 on Tuesday. We haven't picked a location yet at YPN, at the NRPA convention in Florida coming up soon, so that you can meet myself and a lot of the other team members, a lot of the show hosts are going to be there. So we'd love to meet y'all, say hello, and we're going to be doing the live show every day at NRPA. So we'd love to kind of help record with you. It's not going to be like the full hour, but 10 and 15-minute interviews here and there. I think last convention we recorded 20, maybe even 25 live shows. So if you see us, if you see me, if you see anything that says the Daily Parks and Rec show, swing by, just say hello. Even if you don't want to come on live, we'd love to just meet the community in person. I will be there myself, like I said, along with a couple of other show hosts. So again, thank y'all for a great week here on the Daily Parks and Rec show. We will see y'all here again on Monday live. This is Craig LeBlanc, the doorman, signing off with the Daily Parks and Rec show. Thanks a lot, guys. Love y'all. Bye.
Welcome to DPRS Media Co., the first media company built for the people behind the Parks and Rec community. We don't just cover on Parks and Rec, we elevate it, we amplify it, we honor it. At the heart of everything we do is one mission: to serve the public servants, the professionals who design, maintain, and lead the parks that shape our communities. Under the Daily Parks and Rec show, we produce 6 powerful platforms. Leadership in Parks and Rec, a spotlight on directors, superintendents, and visionaries shaping the future of public spaces. Facility maintenance, where the boots hit the ground, a deep dive into the systems, crews, and craftsmanship that keep our parks clean, safe, and beautiful. Young Professionals Network, shining a light on the next generation of Parks and Rec. Students, interns, and mentors sharing how we build a legacy together. Youth Sports Mastery, sponsored by National Academy of Athletics. This series is for coaches, parents, and rec leaders working to make youth sports fun, fair, and meaningful again. The Rec Room, hosted by the passionate leaders of Henry County Parks and Rec. This show brings frontline energy and real-life stories from the field. And the weekly Parks and Rec Post, our official newsletter delivering stories, insights, and community wins every week. We are DPRS Media Co., LLC, a media company with a mission to uplift the professionals who serve every community, every park, every day.